WaFd is one of the Seattle area's largest banks. You came a long way to see us, and we appreciate it.
You know, Brian, it is great to be here in person with you. Thank you.
Well, let's say that after the interview. Your area had one of the hottest housing markets in America. I mean, like literally Amazon and Microsoft employees trampling each other to put all cash bids on homes $100,000 over asking. Now the numbers are down 70% on mortgage origination?
Yes, sir.
That doesn't sound good.
No, it's not good, but it's healthy, quite frankly.
It is?
It was too hot, Brian. I mean, things went too far, too fast. And if you take mortgage rates, a year ago, mortgage rates were, what, 3.5%? And now they're 7.5%. So that's going to happen. But what I keep telling people is don't forget, there is more cash sitting on the sidelines today than there has ever been. And I think people are waiting for a correction, and then they'll gobble them up. I don't feel like we're at risk today in the housing market the same way we were going into the 08, 09 recession.
Do you think the risk was greater when housing just, and I'm sorry to use this term because I'm not very bright, just stupid? Housing got stupid in many areas, right? People putting in $100,000 bids without ever seeing the home, no contingency, right? That was shades of 2007.
And that's
in some markets.
That's my point. It's healthy, right? Because it was stupid. We need things to cool down so we don't have those irrational buyers.
When do you think we'll return to, or have we returned to rationality, Brent?
You know, I think the number this morning, your conversation with Steve earlier, it sounds like things may have turned the corner, but we're still very high on the inflation, right? So to know when we will have turned the corner or when we'll be back there towards normal, we're trending in the right direction now, which is a positive, as opposed to, hey, if we were going even higher on inflation. So I think that's a positive. Yeah. And I think what you saw this morning is that the market is looking for any shred of positivity to say, hey, it's a buying opportunity.
You're a bank. You're a regional bank. And banking, and I mean this as a compliment, Brent, should be boring, right? The idea you take in deposits, you make loans, you get paid back, and you make a spread on that loan, and then you make a bunch of money for your investors and your stock, by the way. Are higher rates good for you? Are you seeing a lot of people just put money literally in the bank instead of buying Bitcoin?
You know, a lot of things to cover there. Let me first say boring is beautiful. We aspire to be boring. There is nothing wrong with that. There's enough excitement in everyone's life. If your banking can be boring, that's a wonderful thing. And spreads are up, not just for WaFd, but for regional banks and banking in general, which is a good thing. Because of the actions of the Fed, when they took rates to nearly zero, all bank margins got compressed. So now they're trending back to where it's a healthy level again. So I think that's a real positive.
Yeah, and are people literally putting money in WaFd and buying CDs? I mean, certificates. It's hard to, we haven't talked about this in decades.
Yeah, the CDs actually pay a reasonable return at this point. No,
what's a return? What could I get on 1-year money, 6-month money?
You know, the CDs tend to go, you know, with treasuries. So you've got, you know, the 1-year treasury in the 4% range. So typically you'll see CDs, you know, ranging from 3% up to those treasury rates.
That doesn't seem too bad these days.
No,
considering the stock market, even with today, is down big this year.
But the other thing to consider, though, is just the immense amount of deposits that came into the banks during the pandemic, right? When the government was putting out so much stimulus out there. So you had nearly $4 trillion of deposits that came into banks in the United States.
Wow.
$4 trillion. So the banks are all flush with deposits, right? So now actually we're seeing net outflows as people say, hey, there are other opportunities out there, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
We wonder why there was inflation. We had supply issues. And $4 trillion just thrown into the bank accounts of tens of millions of Americans.
Turns out supply and demand is true.
It actually works. Milton Friedman somewhere is smiling. Yes. Brent, really appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for the opportunity.
And by the way, bringing our old friend and colleague, Brad Good, is here with you.
Did you see what he did?
He looks good. He looks younger than he did when he was on air here.
Did you see what he did to the markets this morning?
That's it. Brad Good walked into the building and the stock market took off. Brad, come over. I mean, everybody knows Brad. Brad, it's great to have you. Look at this. You want to just take over the anchor chair here?
It feels like old days. Be back in here in the CNBC studio. You did a great job.
Well, thanks for the market rally today. Come back more often.
You know, you bring a West Coast bank in and good things happen.
Good things happen. There we go.